Good morning. It is 5:37 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I have the autopsy results. Just got delivered about 20 minutes ago from FedEx. So I haven't been to sleep yet. So now, I want you to keep in mind while I go through these with you that 1, I'm not an attorney. 2, I'm not a reporter. 3, I am not the coroner. 4, I am not a pathologist. And 5, I'm me. This is for entertainment uses only. So leave comments, tell me I'm wrong if you want. All right? So it's a total of 11 pages. I'm not going to be putting up pictures that are included in this report. They're obviously they're copies, but I'm not going to be putting pictures in here for you. Now, I've already scanned these into my computer, so let's go through these. The autopsy was performed by Michael A. Brunson, MD, PhD. We're going to start off with Shannon's report. I'm going to bruise through these as much as I can because otherwise it would take us about an hour and a half just to get through Shannon's and then Bella's and then Celeste, the 3 of them. Okay, so I mean, just for the sake of time, if you want, there are plenty of people, and you can actually see these on Denver Channel 7 as well. I believe that they will have them on their archives. Okay, Shannon, case number AW18-155, 34-year-old Caucasian female. The autopsy was done August 17th, 2018 at 10:30 hours. Now, when it comes to Shannon, of course, I'm skimming over this. I'm not going to be able to go through each and every part of it. She was pregnant at the time of her death. Based on the history provided in autopsy findings, the cause of death was asphyxiation due to manual strangulation by another individual. The manner of death is definitely homicide. Signed, dated by Michael Burson. Again, now going over some of the things that, besides the fact that she was pregnant, her body, in her actual toxicology report, the toxicology was done by NMS Labs in Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, because they do not have a forensic lab in the state that can do these results quickly. And this is common in a lot of states. If they can get a nearby state to process the results faster, they will do that, because otherwise there's a backlog, with every caseload. But they are certified laboratories, so there's no question about that at all. One of the reason why they held back the autopsy results was because she had a back score blood alcohol concentration of 0.128, and that does not mean that she consumed alcohol at all. That is a normal course of decomposition of a body. Once you die, your body releases all of, first off, you basically poop and pee yourself after death. And part of the breakdown, from what I understand and what I've read online and what I've been told from the medical community, is as the fat in your body is released, and along with the sugar breakdown in your system, it releases alcohol, ethanol, as a normal course of operation. It happens to everyone. It happens to animals. So if your cat dies, it does the same thing. The only thing that they're noted on here was mild to moderate decomposition consisting of general discoloration, bloating, and skin slippage. She was pregnant. The placenta and the baby had gravitated outwardly. This was noted. Her ethanol level was 128 milligrams. And let's see here. She was when recovered from her shallow grave, she was wearing a purple T-shirt, a blue pair of underwear, a black bra, and she had a nasal piercing, and the police had already placed paper bags over her hands to protect any DNA evidence that may have been on her hands or underneath her fingernails. The district attorney's office also is noted here in the autopsy result that the public defender's office had requested that they do swabs of her neck and with the children's necks from Mr. Watts's attorney, and those were done and preserved prior to the body being washed and then being released. The copy of that was also released to the Weld County coroner, state of Colorado. Comes to her actual body, all of the toxicology was in line where it should be. Liver, heart, lungs, pancreas, everything was right. Now the blood alcohol level should be noted that it was in the spinal fluid area as well. So I mean, that is again normal, and that she did have mild bruising around the chin area, and showing that she died of suffocation strangulation. Okay, both. That we'll talk about that a little bit here in the end. Neck area, and midlines through palpitations of linear array, variable sizes, purple, black, circular around the jawline, and upper left aspect of the face towards the left temporal area. So she had a slight bruising right about here, and then she had bruising along the cheek and the chin line here. So now this is my opinion. I'm not someone who's an expert in forensics, but it does appear, and according to what I've read online, it means he most likely got her in an arm chokehold and then suffocated her that way with the other hand. So he grabbed her from behind and blitz attacked her that way. She did not have any signs of having sexual intercourse or anal intercourse before she was killed. No signs there. Her abdomen was normal. Obviously, but besides the fact that she was pregnant, chest, nipples, breasts were normal for female. The neck showed some slight bruising at the chest area line here. So that here and here where the trachea and blood would areas of the vessels are common again. Signs in both eyes of suffocation. Let's see, body cavities normal, fluids accumulations, back and sternum unremarkable, extremities no defensive wounds or signs on the rest of her body that she was able to put up much of a fight. So he either blitzed her and got her while she was asleep, or he did something else. I don't actually know. Respiratory system was normal, spleen was normal, liver and binary systems level with normal, pancreas normal, And I'm reading, this is autopsy result, and then also has the toxicology report as part of it, because they won't release it unless it's complete, toxicology and autopsy. It has to be all in one report here. Um, uh, yeah, genital systems, I already touched on that. Skull, brain, normal, spine, normal, neck, of course, besides the bruising, no thyroid gland and everything else, lobes appears to be unremarkable. Toxicology, no signs of drugs. And that's about it for Shanann. Um, Evidence fetus is transferred to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for genetic analysis to make sure that Nico was definitely the biological child of the two of them. X-rays were performed, the lateral views of the head and neck area. Fingernail clippings and scrapings from underneath her fingernails were taken. And so was a blood spot card. DNA was taken for future references. History, sections of the heart, lung, liver, kidney, brain, bright muscle, arterial muscles, and soft tissue was taken from surfaces and around thyroids. Cartridges in the right lobe of the thyroid are submitted for histology. Complete histology report is next, and all labeled unremarkable, so no evidence of anything else there. So next we'll look at Bella. Bella Watts, age 4. Bella, looking at the diagnosis, it's listed here as she died of suffocation, not strangulation. Looking at her actual, she had an ethanol level and an silentol, which is common from them. She was dumped into a tank with acid, water, and oil, and her body had begun to taking that in. Let's see, she was bound, in case you're interested. She was wearing a nightgown, one-piece nightgown at the time, with butterflies and pink hearts on it. She had no bruising on the neck area, so she was not strangled. There is slight bruising along the face on both sides, so he most likely, cupped his hand over her face to strangle her to death. No tissues foreign found inside the mouth, so it wasn't a pillow or a blanket or anything foreign that was placed over her mouth so she couldn't breathe. NSM labs also noted here in the report that the suffocation is the cause of most likely death. She everything other, lungs, heart, lung, everything, organs all checked out. And then it was signed by Michael Burson. She was wearing a one-piece pajamas with hearts and butterflies. Her underwear were white, but been mostly discolored to dark brown because of the crude oil. No identifying marks or scratches. They did check her anus and her vaginal area to see if she had been sexually molested or assaulted in any way beforehand. No evidence of that as well. I told you it's a little disturbing, but they have to go through all this. It's not a fun job to be a coroner. The DA noted here they did swabs of the child's neck and facial area for DNA. And there was no DNA found that is born to either one of the children. So they were confused why they would need to have taken these, but they did it anyways because the defense had requested it. Now, there is no signs of strangulation marks on the neck anywhere at all, so that doesn't fit his description that on the camera that he saw her choking, or had already choked out Bella, and was going for it on Celeste, and he snapped and then killed her. Doesn't fit. No strangulation marks anywhere on the neck at all, or any of the muscles. No bruising. See, what's the next one? Next page. There is exterior evidence of injuries. There is a 13 by 3 centimeter area of vertical laceration on her buttocks, and a 1.5 centimeter laceration of the upper gum line. And she had several defensive wounds on her hands, backsides, forearms, and backs of her heels. Faint yellow tanning discoloration of the superior aspect of the upper left shoulder, and cut on the head. And that they surmised that the cut and missing hair from the head is from when he tried to shove her into the tank. Again, the DA originally said during the trial that it was an 8-inch opening. It was I don't know if you can get the size of that, but that's like over a 15-inch opening that he shoved him through. He was just a little bit off on that. But that was a statement. It wasn't entered into evidence. So he's allowed to make a simple mistake like that. Interior evidence of injuries, none. Again, she had not ingested like as she was alive, but her body had started to take on the chemicals. Her autopsy was done, just like her mother, at the McKean Medical Center in Loveland, Colorado. Autopsy was performed here in the list of people who were there. Everything was normal to the findings that they would expect. Neck, chest, abdomen, genitals, and back sternum, body cavities, normal. Nothing in that at all. Respiratory system did not show anything out of normal. Spleen, liver, binary systems, gastrointestinal. It then goes into detail about the food that was found left in her stomach. Skull, brain, neck, spine. She fought back pretty good. Swabs were done of the face prior to washing, interior neck prior to washing. Swabs of the face were after washing, neck after washing, bilateral hands, pulmonary surface, oral swabs, vaginal swabs, bilateral fingernails, clippings. Were all done, and a DNA card was made as well, obviously to prove, if she was that of Shannon and Christopher Watts. Next is Celeste Watts, age 3, case number AW18157. Sorry if I didn't say it, but Bella is 156. Mom was 155. And Bella is 156. Celeste is 157. You can look these up online later on in case you can't find them that way. Age 3, female, white Caucasian. Her autopsy was done August 17th at 17:30. So those who don't understand military time, it's 5:30. Hers, no defensive wounds noted. Cause of death, again, is asphyxiation due to smothering. No foreign bodies of hairs or anything found in the trachea or lungs. Again, so whatever he put over, their mouth, most likely was a hand, because it bruising again, just like her sister, on both sides of the mouth. No marks on the neck area. So she was found wearing a pink and black t-shirt, a diaper, and a pair of underwear over the top of the diaper. She had a pull-up on it. Um, and then it lists the brands, but that doesn't matter to anybody, nor does it, change the outcome. Um, no visible signs of trauma. Um, she probably died the easiest because of her body weight and the amount of air that she would able to be taken into her lungs. Um, Medical exam done in the same place, same as her sister. No signs of trauma, sexual assault. She had bruising on the backs of her heels and on her backside, and same as her sister. So most likely from the extensive fall, being pushed down through a manhole and then falling flat on their backs. Even sick dad noted that they sounded different as they hit the surface of their tanks. Spleen, liver, heart, gastrointestinal tract, everything checked out correct there. Both were in good health prior to death. Swabs of the hand were done of the face, neck, area, just like her sister. Again, nothing out of the ordinary there. Spine, liver, skull, brain, all was remarkable. And heart, lungs, liver, kidney, and brain, all the histology was abnormal, so nothing new there. Vaginal swabs, oral swabs, skin, and palpitations all were collected along with DNA, and then sent and will be kept in reserve for some time, just like her sister and her mother. Okay, so my view quickly, and then I'm going to play the press release, I guess, from the DA, which is 37 minutes long. So that's what makes this video long. So if you want to end it after my commentary, you can go ahead. All right. Now, during let me tell you in advance. So if you want to watch the DA's announcements, he talks about the mistress quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, but he does mention her quite a few times in activity that Chris and her were up to during the times that Shanahan was in North Carolina, and things that he had done all the way up during the day of the actual interview he did with the media about his missing family. And some of the weird and bizarre phone calls and stuff that he had made that day. He is also going to touch on other aspects as well. I know it's hard to hear the actual questions asked by reporters. Shanahan's family was there for this press announcement and release. I do not know if Christopher Watts' family were there, but I know Mom and Dad and Junior were present, along with a couple of Shanahan's friends were there as well. My view, this still doesn't answer all the questions, and like the DA said, we most likely never will get all the answers. It's very unlikely that he's ever going to come out and say anything, especially since he's got the next 20 years to file appeals on ineffective counsel and or err on the behalf of the state. So while that's ongoing, they're not going to be talking about it much more beyond this. We might get some information leaked here and there. A lot of it is going to be conjecture. I already see that YouTube and Facebook is flooded with people who are guessing at certain aspects of this case already. So I'm not surprised by that at all. So we know, and one of the parts in the statement from the DA is that he is unaware of any real connection to anyone else that he may have had an affair with or relationship with other than the girlfriend. Yes, so I had a gay relationship with Mr. Watts. No one believes it's true, not even the DA, even after this. So that's been pretty much tossed out. I mean, I knew that guy was full of crap when he started talking, and even just a basic internet search could prove that the accounts that he was talking about were made after Christopher Watts was arrested. All right, so, and he's the scum of the earth. I mean, you don't do this. And like, if that's what shocks everyone, is he could have walked away. If he wanted to start a new life, he could have just walked away. But he decided not to. Why he got to this point, no one's ever going to know. And even if he does talk later on, is he going to tell the truth then? I mean, he's done nothing but lied but this to this point. So, all right. So I'm at 25 minutes. I'm going to play the interview. I hope this answers some more of your questions. Now, I received this video, and I am using it copyright free. This has been taken from the Associated Press Newswire. It is not from an affiliate news station. It is from the Associated Press Newswire, again, and I will put them credit in the description. Thank you very much, and you stay safe out there, America.
That are up here with me, and then we'll get into the press conference. To my right is Weld County Coroner Carl Blesch. To my immediate right, Detective Dave Baumhover from the Frederick Police Department, Chief Deputy District Attorney Steve Wren, Deputy District Attorney Pat Roach, and from the Frederick Police Department, Sergeant Ian Albert. Sergeant Albert has been the PIO from the Frederick Police Department. I first want to invite him up to say a few words, and then I'll comment about this morning. Sergeant Albert.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm only here to issue this statement, and upon doing so, my agency will not be conducting any interviews or answering any questions on the matter. On behalf of the men and women of the Frederick Police Department, I would like to thank our fellow law enforcement agencies, the countless citizens, and all those who contributed to this tireless investigation. It was a combined effort in serving justice today. In the names of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico, today I am proud of the determination that was put forth by all those who worked with us on putting this man away. His deplorable actions were fought back vigorously by honest police work, coupled with the goodwill of caring and loving people. But most importantly, however, I want to send our thoughts and prayers to Frank, Sandy, Frankie Jr., and the entire Rissick family. I don't know if you will ever receive closure on this horrific act of evil. I just pray that our efforts have brought you all one step closer in doing so. Thank you.
As you all, I'm sure, are aware, the defendant in this case this morning was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, plus a 48-year sentence for the unlawful termination of a pregnancy as it relates to Nico Watts. He was also sentenced to 12 years on each of the 3 Class 3 felonies for unlawful tampering with deceased body, those being Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. All of those counts ran consecutively for a total of 3 consecutive life sentences plus 84 years in the Department of Corrections. This afternoon, with the cooperation of the Weld County Coroner, the autopsy reports available and become a public document. There are a few things that I want to talk about that you will see that are contained within those autopsy reports. I'm going to be very general at this point. I hope you understand, out of respect for the Rusick family who is still present. Part of the reason that we kept these sealed were for the following reasons. You will see in the autopsy report of Shanann Watts that forensic toxicology testing indicated that in spleen blood there was a blood alcohol level of 0.128. I want to be abundantly and very, very clear about this. This does not mean that she consumed alcohol, nor that she was intoxicated. We have consulted with the Weld County Coroner's Office. We have conducted with the forensic experts at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. To a person, they have all indicated to us that that blood alcohol level is very, very consistent with normal human decomposition based upon the location and the manner that Shanann and Nico's bodies were buried. Secondly, you will see in the autopsy reports of Bella and Celeste a number of different substances, I think is probably the way, Mr. Blesch, that I want to address those. We have had those examined by both expert chemists as well as the coroner's office, because we wanted to make sure that all of those substances could be attributed to the crude oil and the water that their bodies were found in, and nothing more. The forensic experts confirmed for us that all of the substances found in those toxicology reports are consistent with being submerged in unrefined crude oil. Mr. Blanch, any other comments you want to make about that at this point? Thank you. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions. Obviously, from our perspective, justice was more than served this morning. The defendant is now headed exactly where he belongs, which is a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole. So I'm happy to take questions. I'll certainly call upon Mr. Blesh. Also, what I can tell you is that because of a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is we're not operating in the CSI TV world, oftentimes we can't determine exactly when or a time frame for cause or time of death. Particularly, I think that was complicated by where all of the different bodies were found and the amount of time that passed before their remains were recovered.
I agree.
Well, we know that they were deposited in the locations where they were found in the early morning hours of August 13th. They were recovered on August 16th. That's the best I can tell you from a timing.
The girlfriend you referenced in court, can you give us a better idea of her role in the investigation, how forthcoming she was, and how she helped?
She originally came forward and spoke to investigators on her own volition. Prior to the time, unfortunately, that she came in and spoke with investigators, she had deleted all of the information off of her phone that had any connection between her and Chris Watts. That hampered the investigation. That hampered our ability to get that electronic digital connection between the two. She was interviewed on multiple occasions. I believe that for the most part she was forthcoming in the course of those investigations. We don't have any reason to believe that she had any prior knowledge or involvement in the death of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I think that's the best way I can answer that. Yes, sir. How and why? And I don't think he'll ever answer those questions. Like I said in the courtroom this morning, and I think that the Rusick family said it very, very well as well, I don't think he will ever tell us. I don't think he will give an honest assessment of why he did what he did, how he did what he did. I intentionally called upon him to see if he would answer those questions in the courtroom this morning. Both his mother and through their attorney, his father, said that they hope that he will be honest and come clean someday and give us an account of what happened, because I think, like I said this morning, those are the questions that will always haunt anyone who was involved in the investigation, and I don't think that there is ever going to be a satisfactory answer for anyone, not the least of which is the Rusick family.
You mentioned something before. Why do you think it's that you planned this before the night of?
I don't have any information about any pre-planning or anything like that. Obviously, something like this, in my mind, doesn't just happen on the spur of the moment. But what I alluded to this morning, as it related specifically to Shanann, was the amount of time it takes for one human being to strangle another. And perhaps Mr. Blesh wants to comment on the timing as well. That demonstrates an incredible intent to cause someone's death. He did that 3 times. So to say that this was anything other than a deliberate, intentional killing is inaccurate, to say the least. Yes, sir.
You described Mrs. Watts as, it took a long time for her to die. Was there any defensive wounds on Mr. Watts, and can you have any evidence she was asleep?
He had one small mark on his neck that was observed the night he was originally interviewed. We don't know if that's related or not, but other than that, no. We had him photographed from head to toe that night, and nothing was observed that would be consistent with injuries to him as a result of the struggle.
Yeah, go ahead.
The original video isn't the one you released today, correct? Can you elaborate on what that would have been?
To be clear, there was only one plea deal, and it's that's the one that his attorneys brought to us. The deal, for lack of a better word, and I frankly despise that word, no offense, the agreement that was reached was he would plead guilty to every count we charged him with. In exchange, if he pled guilty to each and every count in the complaint information, we would not seek the death penalty. That was an offer brought to us by the defense. That's when, I've talked about this before, Mr. Wren and I felt compelled to get on a plane and go see the Rusiks in North Carolina, because that was a conversation that I was only going to have with them face to face. Go ahead, Carol. No, it didn't. Yeah. Sorry, I meant to, yeah, we'll go back behind it first.
There's a letter that's circulating about social media that apparently Chris sent his family a week prior to the murders, where he's saying, if anything happens to me or the girls, I would never hurt my daughters. Is there anything to that? Is that legitimate? And it seems to me it shows that he's planning this at least a week ahead.
You're seeing a lot of puzzled looks up here because none of us have ever heard that. I've never seen that on social media. I confirmed just by the look on his face with Detective Baumhover, we have never seen and nor heard of any such letter or its existence before. I'm sure that if it was in any way, shape, or form real, we would have heard about it. Go ahead.
You were describing some of those very discomfort. The judge himself even seems to be emotional.
Right.
Talk to us about what that's like. He's standing there next to you and have that kind of reaction.
It's not something that I relished. Mr. Wren and I and Mr. Miller, the assistant DA, met at my house yesterday for several hours to talk through the comments that we wanted to make. And we all recognized that in order for the court to impose a just sentence, a fair sentence under the circumstances, that he had to know as much information as we could give him in a respectful fashion. Like I said, he had never read most of that. He had seen an affidavit which had some of the very preliminary information that Detective Baumhover put on paper. But I felt like it was important for the judge to understand the horror that was involved in this case. Even though in the end of the sentence, for the defendant, it's not going to matter if he gets 1 consecutive, 2 consecutive, 3 consecutive life sentences. It doesn't matter in the end what number is attached to the end of those. It certainly matters to the Rusik family. It certainly matters to law enforcement and to my office. And I hope it matters to the public. When we're saying, you know what, there is a sentence that was imposed today that is reflective of the actions he took as to each and every one of his victims. Yeah, go ahead.
If I remember correctly, you all searched the location of the bodies were found before Mr. Watts how did you determine the location of the bodies?
GPS.
How did you know where to look?
On his work truck, he had a GPS device that showed the path of travel that he took when he left his home that morning. It showed at various increments the time that it would have taken him to get to various spots. So the CBI, FBI, Frederick Police knew where he had gone immediately after leaving his home that morning, which caused some of the initial searches with drones and foot searches. Only after he gave us that information did they have a more specific place to look.
Did you hear to text his coworker that he could take the morning shift before or after?
There were text messages on Sunday afternoon, a text message, I should say, between he and a coworker talking about the work schedule. The investigation that law enforcement conducted indicated that wasn't necessarily out of the ordinary, but in conjunction with everything else we know, became an important fact for us in his efforts to have time to dispose of the bodies in the manner in which he did. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, during your investigation, have you guys found any evidence, anything suggesting that he had violent tendencies?
No.
Any mental problems or all these other things?
No, none of the above. Yeah, Kevin.
Sounded like from the statement of
Sure. Mr. Wren met with him.
When the court issued its order recognizing them as victims under the Victim Bill of Rights, our office agreed to meet with them, and I met with them for several hours last night with their attorney that was present in the courtroom today and one of our victim witness assistants. We had what I consider to be a good conversation. It was awkward and tough in some respects, for obvious reasons. But I think ultimately they wanted to know the facts that we knew, and they wanted to know what was going to come out today. And they felt like they had been deprived of that information, and so consistent with our obligations under the statute, I provided them with that information, and I think it changed their perspective a little bit on what was going to happen today. I do. I think in the middle of that conversation that they came to a realization about the extent of the evidence that we had and why we were making the decisions we made, why we charged them with the things that we charged him with, why we were so convinced that he committed these crimes and that it didn't happen the way that Chris Watts had initially told the police. And so I can't speak for them per se, but my impression from our conversation was that, and I think it's consistent with what they said in court today, is that they're in a little bit different place emotionally and as to what they feel their son did, and they're trying to get their head around that, which has been difficult and understandably so.
Yes, please. No. The story that you all have had from the affidavit in which he falsely claimed that Shanann had responsibility for the death of the two girls was the only statement that he gave until his pleas of guilty in the courtroom. No. No. Well, there was no PSI done. There was no reports done between the time of his guilty plea and today's sentencing hearing. Yes. Exactly the same. Absolutely horrifying. All of us standing up here, I think, have dealt with a number of serious crimes, but when you take a look at this one and you take a look at the death of those children, and like I said this morning, the death of Shanann, none of these things had to happen. And the manner in which they were disposed of showed a complete and utter disregard for any kind of human decency at all. Yes, sure.
This started out as a missing persons case.
Very, very early on. Many of the things that he was saying just weren't quite adding up. The Frederick Police Department, the CBI, the FBI did an amazing job from the very outset to begin to focus on him, and rightly so. I think that you saw in a matter of 3 days a gruesome triple homicide, including a pregnant woman, solved, is a testament to the efforts of the men and women who participated in this investigation. I think it was very clear from the outset that he was responsible for this and frankly was pulling the wool over the eyes of the media, to the extent that anybody in the media believed him, let's put it that way. Yeah. Well, everything from the fact that she was, they were still in bed sleeping when he left the home in the early morning hours to go to work, yet her vehicle was still there, her car keys were still there, her wallet, her purse, her cell phone, which she never went anywhere without, were all still inside the home. The home, when law enforcement arrived, was locked up tight from the inside. The only way that the law enforcement could get in was getting Mr. Watts there with a garage door opener to let law enforcement in. There was no way anyone was going to get into that house as a stranger, do something to that family, and get back out and leave the house locked up in that manner. I think that was probably the most compelling thing that struck law enforcement almost immediately. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
We also made some phone calls early the morning of the 13th, first to the children's school and then to a realtor, which were very odd and inconsistent with the rest of his conduct that day and what he was telling the media and police.
There is, and I know that that's going to be still the subject of some probate proceedings. You know, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I apologize. I don't remember the answer to that question. Okay.
Talk about restitution.
Hmm.
Is there any, I know you mentioned that you have a violent tendency. Is there any, 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 is there any
There will be significant restitution because, amongst other things, the burial expenses for Shanann, the girls, and Nico obviously will be covered under that statute. We recognize that when someone goes to prison for the rest of their life, their earning potential drops off dramatically, but a portion of any earnings that he has in the Department of Corrections will be used to help pay back that restitution to the Victims' Compensation Fund.
Would you have preferred to have money in this case? And if so, why did you lose?
Christopher Watts certainly deserved the death penalty. We thought long and hard about it. We had a lot of discussions within our office, and what compelled me to accept the defense's offer was meeting with those folks in North Carolina. When Steve and I sat in their kitchen and we explained to their family the state of the death penalty in Colorado, the possible future of the death penalty as then we knew an election was coming up, and the likelihood that an execution would occur anytime within any of our lifetimes not being a high probability. And when I brought up the offer that had been extended to us by the defense, and when Sandy leaned across the table and looked at me very sternly and said, "And why haven't you done that yet?" that helped solidify in my mind that this family needed some closure. We were able to get that for them this morning. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question for you. There's
Yeah.
the one camera on the family's door. Is there any other cameras within the house that would have shown it?
No, there was they had, Shanann had a doorbell camera on her doorbell. That's the one that showed her arriving back home from the airport in the early morning hours, but there were no other cameras inside the house. There was the baby monitor that has been a lot of discussion has been had about. It did not have recording capabilities.
How is the little
The one that's right behind you?
you think that maybe this was like an accidental
I think she was absolutely instrumental. The fact that she made phone calls to the Frederick Police Department within several hours of this act and this disappearance, I think only benefited law enforcement. Being able to have law enforcement respond to that house before the defendant came back and was able to do any other cleanup or getting rid of evidence, I think was crucial to this investigation. And so she's obviously here, and I want to extend our thanks to you for that very timely response, and thank you for all you've done. Yes?
Mary Helen, do you know the order for the death?
No, like I talked about earlier, we just weren't able to ascertain time of death as to any of these individuals. So to say that Shanann was deceased before the girls or vice versa would simply be speculation. Yeah.
You mentioned in the report motionless, what you call motionless strength. What do you make of it now, knowing what you know?
Bald-faced lies. He stood up there and he tried to deflect attention away from his own responsibility. He lied to the public. He stood there and said he hopes his children and his wife were safe for probably the better part of 2 days, knowing full well exactly where they were, how they had passed away, and how they had gotten to where they were. Yeah.
It may be a better question for the Department of Corrections, but what is a day in the life in prison going to look like for this?
That's probably a better question for DOC. I know that they are an exceedingly professional organization who will see to his safety, will place him in a prison that they feel is most appropriate for him. Beyond that, I couldn't comment on that. Yeah.
You mentioned that the toxicology reports were Shanann last did you test for positive for drugs and alcohol the night of the murder?
We did not. When he was contacted by law enforcement, and Detective Baumover was in contact with him within a matter of an hour of the first phone call by Ms. Atkinson, there was absolutely no indication that he was under the influence of any drugs and or alcohol that would have justified any kind of testing.
I know you don't know why exactly, but can you talk about what the reason for a CMV moving father to do something?
Like I said this morning, I think that based upon his Google searches, his cell phone searches, some of the things that he was doing while Shanann and the girls were in North Carolina, I think it became pretty obvious that he found a new love interest. And for whatever reason in his mind, divorce wasn't an option. I can't speak as to why anyone would take the steps that he did. But during the course of our investigation, other than the normal stressors of financial stress that I think most of us have, the occasional marital stress, we couldn't find anything else that was a significant enough motive to annihilate your family in the manner that he did. Yeah. There was everything from photographs of he and his girlfriend at the Great Sand Dunes in southern Colorado during the time that Shanann was in North Carolina. We knew that they had gone to other museums together. They had gone to bars and restaurants together. Like I said this morning, he had done searches dealing with secluded vacation spots in Aspen that he was planning on apparently taking her to. He was researching jewelry. He was doing all of that kind of research that you would think that somebody in a brand new relationship would be doing. But he was still married with 2 daughters and a son on the way. Yes, sir.
Can you speak at all to the state of the house? I understand that the 2 beds were stripped of sheets.
Steve, I'll let you take this one.
Otherwise, disarray.
I'll let Steve take this one.
It was not generally in disarray. There was no obvious signs of a struggle like we see in a lot of houses where something traumatic occurs. The master bedroom bed did not have sheets on it. Those sheets had been taken off and placed, part of them had been placed in the trash can, and then apparently Shanann had been wrapped in one of those sheets, or that sheet had gone with her out to the oil tank and was found by the drone about the same time that he was being interviewed by the FBI and CBI. And that was a key piece of evidence in us connecting the missing persons to him, was the fact that the sheet from the bed was found out at the oil tank, and that was prior to him confessing that he had taken the bodies there.
Can anybody discuss his reaction when confronted with that evidence?
Go ahead, you want to take that one too?
Yeah, we were getting that information from the drone search at the same time that he's starting to give us some more information about the nature of his relationship with Shanann and the problems that they had been having. We were also getting, or CBI and the FBI were also getting information confirming this other relationship, the girlfriend, about the same time. So all of that was coming together while they were talking to him. That information was being communicated to him, or to the investigators, and they started confronting him with that. And that's ultimately when he changed direction with his story dramatically and asked to speak to his father briefly, and then told the interviewers that at that point he was willing to tell them what happened. And ultimately that is when things changed and he admitted to dumping the bodies in the oil tanks.
With what was admitted in the recent statement of the record report this morning, do you have a sense of how legitimate remorse Mr. Watson expressed is?
You and I must have seen something different, because I didn't see any remorse on his face at all in court. I saw somebody who I believe felt truly sorry for himself for the circumstances that he now found himself in. I don't believe that there was any remorse displayed at any point in time for Shanann, Bella, Nico, or so. No. Yeah.
What do you make of the discrepancy between the story he told about strangling us, seeing Shanann strangle the children, versus the fact that he actually smothered them? What do you make of that? Seems like a small discrepancy.
Oh no, that's a very large discrepancy. That is another lie. And I keep emphasizing and using that word. We can't in the courtroom. I can here. I can tell you in no uncertain terms, he lied to investigators, he lied to the media, he lied to the public. The fantastic work that was done by the medical examiner in this case, by the coroner's office, in giving us the information in a very responsible, medically accurate way to be able to say, no, those girls were not strangled. And when he sat there and in that interview demonstrated what he saw her doing, and we know that that's not what happened, it turned into a very large discrepancy in our mind.
Do we know what Suzanne knew about Suzanne?
We knew that, excuse me, I should say she knew that there was a lot of suspicious behavior. We knew that she was getting alerts on her phone of credit cards being used at a restaurant in North Denver at a time that she was in North Carolina for amounts of money that one person couldn't possibly probably consume reasonably. We know that she confronted him about that numerous times. We know that he was never completely forthcoming with her, except we don't know exactly what was shared between the two of them in those early morning hours after she got back from Arizona. Yes, sir.
Any reason to believe that the pregnancy had anything to do with the actions taken?
I can't say that it didn't have anything to do with it. We knew that Shanann was very excited about Nico and the upcoming birth. We also know that the reaction of the defendant when he found out was something less than what you would expect a normal, reasonable father to display when he finds out that he's about to have a son. Yes? No. Beyond his hand, I don't know if there was anything in his hand. What I can tell you is that during the course of the autopsies, there was no fibers or anything like that found in their airways to indicate pillow or blanket or anything like that, so I don't know. I'll let Mr. Blush.
There are some physical signs. We're going to distribute the autopsy reports to you. In the interest of balance with the family present, may I suggest that you look at that and you will see what evidence the forensic pathologist could see.
Over the last couple days, how would you describe personally this case, the tools and
I don't know if I accurately can. Steve and I and Patrick have had a lot of conversations along with Dave and everybody else who's worked on this case about how exceedingly difficult it has been. The thing I will tell you that gets us up and gets us moving every day is that family sitting right over there. They have been phenomenal to work with under the most extreme circumstances you can imagine. And when we get to work in the morning and Sandy has called and left us a voice message asking for us to call her, it kind of gets your blood flowing and really wanting to do the best you possibly can for them. There's been a lot of sleepless nights. There's been time away from families. Even when we are home, sometimes we're not exactly there. When we're having to look at some of the most gruesome things you can imagine. But it's been tough, but it's also why we do the job. And even though you didn't ask, I'm going to take an opportunity to say it. Thank you to Frank and Sandy and Frankie for all that you have participated in, all that you have been subjected to. It has been an honor learning a little bit about your family. Good. I think you hit the most important points in the autopsy as we saw them from a prosecution standpoint. I talked about the injury to Bella that was indicative of being pushed down into those oil tanks, but he had told us that. They were the most important factors in our determination that he had in fact committed what we charged him with. Yeah.
This might be another question better for DOC, but do you know where
No. We know that he will head to the Denver Regional Diagnostic Center, obviously in Denver. They will do some evaluations of him, but beyond that, it will be up to DOC as to whether or not he will be housed at a facility here in Colorado or if he'll be moved out of state. That's completely their determination. Other questions? Yes, sir. Sure. There is always the opportunity through the Victims Compensation Program for financial assistance with any counseling needs that are necessary. most directly, though, if Sandy has any questions or concerns, she can always pick up the phone and call one of us. Yes, sir.
The evaluation report is going to take place before you offer it. If they find anything, would that really change how he's going to spend his time or his treatment in incarceration?
It may be something that DOC takes into consideration as to where they'll house him or what kind of programs they'll put him in, but from our perspective, it doesn't change anything that happened today. Yes, sir. I'm glad you used the word rumor, because I think that's the vast majority of what we saw on social media was just that, false rumor. I'm not aware of any other confirmed relationships that the investigation uncovered which would offer any insight into why this occurred, other than the girlfriend that I talked about this morning. Yes, sir.
Were any social media rumors really disruptive to your process?
All of them are disruptive to our process. And I don't say that crassly. When we are out, when Dave and his team are out conducting interviews of witnesses, and an individual's memory might be tainted by something inaccurate that they read on a social media site, that causes us to think, okay, how much is true of what somebody's saying? What did they see? What did they hear? Or what are they surmising or guessing because of something that they read on social media? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can generally tell you that the investigation included interviews of all of Shanann's co-workers, all of her close friends, relatives, co-workers of the defendant, relationships of the defendant, neighbors. Who am I missing? Generally, I think those are the categories. Yeah, family members of both Shanann and the defendant. A long, long list of interviews. I could ask Dave to go through and recite them all, but he might miss some. Any other questions? Yes? I have asked them on the way down. They did not want to make a statement today, and I hope you understand the statements that they made in court, I think, were probably about as difficult as they could possibly imagine. So I appreciate you asking. They wanted to be here. They just didn't want to make a statement. Yes? It will be an ongoing amount. Within 91 days, we will file a motion with the court asking for any restitution or any cost that we can recover in restitution. As of that 91 days will be asked for and ordered, I presume. There will be ongoing costs, if there are any ongoing counseling or therapy costs, and we will ask the court to keep the possibility of future restitution open as well. Yes? As soon as I stop answering questions. Any other questions?